Bing bong. I'm back with another edition of the State of Bitcoin podcast where I'm doing a little bit of an in-person interview here with the man, the myth, the legend, Carr. But before I get into Carr, shout out to everybody streaming me sats. I do have a few people that have left me boost, but we're recording this on Tuesday, so it's a little earlier than I normally do it. But because we got a ton of shit going on here at SatsBuy, so if you aren't plugged in on what's going on in SatsBuy, check out the live streams that I've done throughout the week. And then, this is dropping on Friday. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that you missed, but tune in. I talked to a bunch of people throughout the week, but also shout out to the sponsor, Codl.co. That's CODL.co. Best punch plates in the game. Use promo code Green Candle and you can get a punch plate for 10% off. You can save that 10%, use it to stack more sats. Get your Bitcoin off of an exchange. If you haven't already, I don't know what you're doing, but use a punch plate at Codl.co. Use promo code Green Candle to get 10% off. All right. The man, the myth, the legend, Carr. We had you on the live stream for a little bit, but yeah, man, how are you? I mean, we just
Thanks,
talked
dude.
yeah,
we just talked like 45 an hour ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing good. Thank you again for coming out to Austin, and I really appreciate it, Brendan. I mean, you can definitely feel your impact when you're inside a Pleb Lab. It's really cool. The vibes are high.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
man. I mean, it's been a ton of fun. So I mean,
yeah,
being in your like little world here for what
2 days?
Yeah, like 2 days. It's awesome. I mean, like I spent 2 hours yesterday, 2 hours today speaking to plebs on like just all the projects that they're doing. And it's incredible, dude. It's like it's just given me a new life when it comes to Bitcoin, and I mean I couldn't be more thankful for you letting me kind of come in and crash your party.
What do you think about it? Like, what do you think about the people that you met here? As far as like, do you see, like, just from your perspective, I could learn here. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, man. So I mean, it does seem like there's a lot of devs, which is like awesome. You know, they're working on that kind of stuff. I mean, we're going to go to Lit Devs shortly here after this, which honestly, like, I didn't even know that existed. To be honest with you, like I've heard of Bit Devs and other things like that, but like in Tampa, there's not a Lightning developers meetup or anything like that. So it'll be interesting for me to kind of see the differences between that and Bit Devs and those kind of things. And yeah, man, it the other interesting part of it is like, we're in the content business a little bit. So, I'm on Twitter a lot. I follow a lot of people on Twitter and I feel like I'm plugged in, but then I come here and I'm like, wow, there's like so much shit going on in Bitcoin land that I'm not aware of. But I mean, that's awesome to me because it's like a lot of people are working on a bunch of different projects that, you highlight in Thriller and, some of these other people can maybe highlight, but, some of them, that they're just here traveling in and, we get to kind of experience it that way. So I think it's, for me, it's exciting. And yeah, man, I'm getting jacked up just kind of sitting here talking about it.
Yeah, it's also interesting too. Like for me, I know you said that I'm plugged into everything that's going on. I even feel kind of slightly unplugged because there's a lot more stuff that is just done either in stealth or like no one has paying attention to it. All the stuff that's happening on Nostra, I'm trying to track that, and that's even hard to figure out like where everything is there. So I think what I've realized to get the knowledge of like what's really going on in the space, it's literally talking to the devs and finding out what they're interested in and what they're building. And then they start mentioning projects that I never heard of. And I'm like, oh, what's that? And then you come to find out what it is and you learn about it. So I think for me, it's talking to everybody, kind of what you're seeing, and you're kind of stepping in my shoes. You can kind of see like where it becomes infectious almost. Like,
yeah, and I brought it up to you like in the live stream, and it's funny because it's like the water cooler talk here is just like so interesting, and like any person that you talk to, they're just building on something else or doing something else involved in Bitcoin, which is just like, hey, I didn't even really think that was like going to be some sort of solution for something, and I'm like, oh shit, this sounds like really cool,
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of big brains here doing all sorts of really cool stuff. I think one of the interesting things that got built this week was the inscription. It's I forget what Super called it. It's like paint your own inscription or whatever, but you can basically like, put a JPEG on the blockchain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a lot of people will be upset with that, but like that's just something that he worked on this week. It's called Inscribe the Planet. Right. And so,
the funny thing is he was telling me,
things.
he was telling me a little bit earlier, he worked on that from like starting at 12, like one day, and him and Topher just cranked that out like within like 6 hours.
Yeah, dude, I believe it. There is like last year he was working on a kind of like a Uber replacement. He was calling it Bull Run. And then I remember he's like, Car, my friend Christopher's going to be working on this Uber thing. And, I want to help him. And I'm like, cool. And then he literally is just like, I think I'm going to build that. I'm like, what, a decentralized Uber? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And then he literally built it like in 5 days. Jesus. And it's like what? Super?
What is going on, man? That's incredible, dude. That's awesome. Yeah.
The guy is just, I mean, there's certain things that have to, I mean, he does it because he wants to build it. Like, it's like it's like an itch he has to scratch, right? But it's also, he's creating at least something. So if somebody wanted to go do this, they would at least have the frame to how to go and do it. Maybe you'd have to go in there and tweak a couple things, but the frame is there that you can go and build, right? A template's there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's kind of the cool thing about being in the space, is like seeing like all these ideas and projects converge, or that's kind of cool. And the discussion is part of it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now let's back it up there, Car. So for those who don't know you, I mean, we were kind of just going into it a little bit, just like right off the gun. But all right, who is Car? How did you get to become the Pleb Lab CEO? Like, how did you find Bitcoin? And yeah, man.
I think for me, my kind of story is I got interested in Bitcoin. 2015 was when I really got into it. I saw one of my friends had sent, I was working IT at the time, just doing like help desk work. And then one of my friends sent me over this Joe Rogan clip of him and Andreas, like talking about like Bitcoin. And at that time I was like, oh man, I want a piece of this. Like I want to, and then I went on local Bitcoin and like bought my first Bitcoins on there. And, at that time, I think KeepKey was around, because I think I stored it all on KeepKey. KeepKey was a hardware wallet. So I didn't know what I was doing. So I bought all these Bitcoins, stored it on KeepKey. And then that's when I saw like Litecoin and some of these other, poo-poo coins. And then I bought some of that stuff too. And then I literally didn't pay attention to it until like 2017. Then I, got down the whole crypto thing, and I started my media company around that time, but it was around crypto, and I didn't really know anything about the space. But I thought that I liked it enough, because I thought there was possibilities there, and it was at that time that I started going to like these Ethereum summits and all these kind of events, and so I basically was just like a crypto reporter for like 2017 to about 2020, and then around in 2018 I met Gary Leland of BitBlock Boom. And he kind of started orange pilling me over the course of like 2 to 3 years. And then he would just invite me to BitBlock Boom, go to BitBlock Boom Car, you can learn this. And it was around 2020 that I really jumped into it, because I saw, I think it was that year, I think Parker was doing like a La Tigra like presentation about like the Fed and stuff like that. And it was at that point that I was like, whoa, this is it. And then from there, I never looked back. I started doing Thriller Bitcoin full time later that year, because I was stacking sats the whole time, and then I just became a big Bitcoin bull. And then it was around that time that I started the Austin Bitcoin Club in 2021 with my friend Kyle. And then out of that came Pleb Lab, and then that was kind of just interesting, because like for me, I initially just started Austin Bitcoin Club because I wanted to hang out with other Bitcoiners. There wasn't really a social thing happening inside of Austin, so that's kind of how I did it. And Kyle was just like the perfect guy to help run that thing. And then at that time, like Austin was kind of brewing, and it was just being at the perfect. It's just like almost like interesting. It's just like being the perfect person at the perfect time in the perfect scenario. And then at that point, Austin Bitcoin Club kind of blew up, and everybody wanted to like do hackathons and developers. And so the people at Capital Factory gave us not only the space, but they gave us another space to build Pleb Lab, which was like a hacker space incubator thing. And so we did that from like October of 2021 till about October 2022. And so we did that. We helped a lot of startups, get raised and stuff like that. We did stuff with Oshis, Apprise, Stacker News, people like that. And then we had just other friends that were devs involved. Then we did hackathons and stuff. And then it wasn't until about August of 2022 last year, we moved into this space. So then we started doing this hacker space and accelerator, and it was like really cool because we had our own space at the time, and we were kind of building it, but we didn't really know what we were doing. And like I feel like it's not until like I would say this past couple of months, I really started looking at Pleb Lab and kind of seeing its vision for where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Kind of a long story, but that's kind of like the whole car journey.
Yeah, man, that's a journey though. I mean, like kind of just sitting back there and like reflecting on that, on like how far you've come in this space. I think, if you go on Twitter, a lot of the Bitcoin maxis just, kind of hate on the shitcoiners and that kind of stuff right now. But I think, part of a lot of Bitcoin maxis journeys now is just kind of going through that own personal journey and kind of having that eureka moment. Like, maybe you come for the number go up and then you stay for like the hard money principles and kind of the actual money right behind Bitcoin and other things like that. But, you kind of had like an infinity for bringing people together, which I think is very unique on your journey, where, you kind of helped the Austin Bitcoin Club, you met with Gary Leland. It seems like you've always been kind of, like networking, kind of trying to bring together more Bitcoiners. So, has it always been kind of something, I guess, like that you've been passionate about, where it's been like, hey, bringing people together, kind of like, helping raise other people up? Or,
like how did I, yeah, I think, well, I should give some background. Like my mom, she was a community organizer, in Corpus Christi, and that's where I'm from originally. And so I used to always go with her to like presentations and see how she would do. Like we would go to South Padre and we would help out, like do her like grassroots stuff that she was doing there. She was involved with like the women's shelter and like Nueces County and stuff. So she would do. I'm sure you can like find her like on. She's all over like their local newspaper over there, or she was, growing up and stuff. So a lot of people knew my mom. Like it was interesting growing up because people like, was that your mom? Like on TV? And I was like, yeah, that was my mom on TV. So it was like she was known inside the community for like being that person that would do outreach and try to help people. So for me, I was more on the artistic side. I grew up very much like very creative, and my mom would always try to throw me in like different classrooms on the weekends for like artistic stuff. I went to art school, like just did like, I was always that. And it wasn't until like I was in college and I actually had a professor, and he was like, if you want to be a real artist, I remember, I'll never forget, like, you want to be a real artist, like real artists go out there and make it. They don't like, I don't know why that stuck, but to this day, I just like his words were like, they don't just like, graduate and then become like, the greats. Like they go and do it, like, and they eat dirt and stuff. He was basically saying that. And at the time I was just kind of like, my friends were like building bands and stuff. And so like, I kind of joined them and started a punk band and like was doing that kind of thing for most of my early 20s, right after I dropped out of college. At the time, I remember everybody was like, what are you doing? That's a big mistake. Like, but at the time I didn't realize it, but I learned a lot of the DIY kind of grassroots stuff was from building bands and like being a part of that culture. And I was very straight edge at the time. Like I never did drugs or anything like that. And it wasn't until like I moved to Austin, because eventually I wanted to move to Austin. Like this is the place I used to always come all the time. And so I would come back and forth between Austin and Corpus all the time. And it was just a place that I would call my second home. And it wasn't until like I came in here, like lived here officially like in 2010, where I started getting involved with the music scene here in town and like started helping people, facilitate like their band. So basically doing what I used to do for my band, like playing music and like helping grow like the street team or whatever. I would do that for bands here in town, and it was just for free. It was just literally so the space could grow and it could be a part of it. And it was a lot of fun. And what I saw during that time in the 2010s, the early 2010s, was there was a lot of artists, there was a lot of like creatives and just like musicians were on the east side. And then it like somewhere around 2014, it just started fading away. Like it just went away. And then so when 2018, 2019, 2020 happened, I remember thinking the same thing too. It was like, man, this Bitcoin scene reminds me very much of what the artist creative scene was back in the day, like a decade ago. And so I just basically did that. I kind of just started getting involved in the community and just wanted to help. And I've already kind of I just grew up seeing my mom do it. I did it for my band. I then did it here in Austin with musicians and creatives here. So I already had a background in doing all that stuff. So it was just like the perfect fit. So now whenever we have like anything Bitcoin community focused here in Austin, it's very easy for me to kind of fit in there and kind of just like start helping out. And I've always just been a person that wants to help people. Like that's why I created Thriller Bitcoin, right? It's like my little media company. But I just want to be able to kind of document things. And like, I like writing and I like being creative and I like helping people. And that's kind of where it's quite all this kind of exists, is because I just wanted to feel like it was, like it was, if it was important to others, and then it definitely was important to me. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring up the music scene, because I mean, anybody that's kind of on the outskirts of the Bitcoin space probably thinks of Austin as like the music scene, right? When I was growing up, it was described as the live, self-proclaimed, but the live music capital of the world. But I mean, like, you go to any bar or street, during the week, during the weekend, you're going to be able to find a live show, which is pretty unique to Austin. And it's also kind of the scene in Nashville too. So it's unique that you bring that up, because I never really thought about the parallels between maybe creatives and the grassroots movement of music scenes. And it kind of seems to have taken heart in, like, I guess, Bitcoin, right? I mean, Austin and Nashville are two of the biggest hubs, and those are kind of the two of the biggest like grassroots scenes.
Point.
So I never really put that together until you kind of brought it up. But it is interesting, and I do see the parallels when you kind of lined it out as you did. But with that, like, as you kind of described your creative background and kind of bringing people together, when it comes to like, how is that? I think like your background and all that. You said you've brought people together for other various things and whatnot. Like, how do you think that's, one, helped you be where you're at today in Pleb Lab? And like, how do you think that experience is going to, help elevate, where you want to see Pleb Lab going forward? Because it seems like you've already kind of, maybe you haven't done it like to the full extent or like full time, and you're kind of doing that now full time, but you're bringing that in, and that experience of bringing together, kind of helping the community grow, and it's shot up like crazy. So how do you think that previous experience has helped you not only, develop the Austin as like a mecca, but, help bring Pleb Lab forward?
Yeah, I think I can speak for myself. Like there was like, it's kind of weird. Like when I look at the position that I'm in now, what I'm doing, it's interesting. Like I look back now, and I'm like, every single job that I had, like, I'm using every day. Like every job, every different kind of thing that I learned along the way. And I'm an old man now, but like,
you're not that old.
I'm kind of old. I won't dox my age, but like, but it's interesting because like I said, the band stuff helped, the creative stuff that I do help, the community stuff that I do help. Even like I used to do IT, so I didn't tell you this part, but like after 2014, after the kind of the music thing kind of died here in town, or at least the community that I was involved with, I got into IT and just started doing help desk stuff, and then I became a system administrator, then engineer. I was like the first 20 people inside this company that was that end up selling. So like all those things, but even then was learning all that stuff from like 2014 to like 2020 was the client to client stuff, building a business in Austin, learning from my previous mentor there for his company, seeing how projects and like growth can happen from a relatively small company in the early beginnings, seeing what it's like to actually do, B2B inside of Austin and how to actually make that work. So there's just a lot of that stuff that I use now on my day to day. And then, I didn't tell you this part, but like in 2021, I started working with Matt and Marty with our HR and TFTC and stuff. And then so learning to, like, when I came into Bitcoin, my first job was working with Marty as his producer. And so like learning underneath him and like seeing his day to day and how he worked and how he saw the space and being directly connected to all of his people that he was involved with, and like, yeah, just seeing how he approached his job and what he does and like all the things that he does, and being able to ask him questions and like say like, why is this and why is that? And yeah, like for me, it was like all those jobs and all those positions that I did and the work that I used to do, like all led to like me doing this now. And I kind of look at it and I'm like, wow, like God literally like made sure I had like every single job that I was going to need for like, running Pleb Lab now. So that's kind of that's kind of how I see it. I think everybody's path and journey is unique. I think it's just having faith and having faith in what you're doing, and then also having faith in others to help get you there. And if it's gonna happen, then it will just happen. And sometimes you don't have any control over it. Sometimes it's literally like, God putting you in the right position to make that move when you're ready. So that's kind of how I see it. I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but
no, it 100% is. I just think, I think it's really unique too, because, obviously you've got your own background and thank you. And you've got, your own kind of, way path you got to Pleb Lab and everything. But what I think that your background's unique, but you having a bunch of different positions and kind of just going through life, maybe not necessarily isn't as unique to like, people in the Bitcoin space, right? Because there's nobody that's been in Bitcoin for 15 years, right? I mean, it's created 2008 and all that stuff. So, I mean, like at the end of the day, you have some sort of skill or something that you've done in a previous job, previous life, whether it's, something like that you can help and use that experience to kind of help build up the Bitcoin space. And I think that's you're like, the poster child for that, dude. Like you've used like not only, your own experience, but your mom's experience and like kind of just your overall life experience to kind of help build it up. And like, all it took was just a little bit of passion behind Bitcoin. And I think like that's the one unique aspect that I see about the Bitcoin space as a whole, as I'm talking to all these plebs, throughout the day, is that every single person has some sort of different background that they're bringing in, but the one similarity that they all have is just passion for Bitcoin and passion for the Bitcoin mission. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like awesome. And that's what's kind of got me jacked up here in Austin, is just seeing like all that stuff, seeing, people like yourself who are just, doing it all out of the, kindness of their heart and wanting to, improve the world that they live in. And, I mean, just sitting here, like you reflecting about this and just, knowing you for the few months that I have and just seeing how, your expression as you're kind of going through all this stuff, I'm like, you're just like really like sitting back like, wow, this is kind of a journey and it's brought me all here. And you're just like, man, ever thankful that maybe that you found Bitcoin or everything. But at the end of the day, it was all kind of, this path that you see has kind of been lined up to get you where you're at.
Yeah, that's I'm a Christian, so I'm very much a believer in God and kind of his will and all those things. And so like for me, it's a lot of that stuff is attributed to him and to the people around me that have helped me get where I'm at today. I will say though, like it's not all sunshine and roses and that kind of thing. It's a very hard, like building on Bitcoin is very hard. I think running a business in general is very hard. Like for me, like one of the things that I hope to get better at is I want to start reaching out to more and more Bitcoin like companies and people that are in charge of these companies, because I want to learn from them. Like I remember like when I was doing producing with Marty, the NVK came in one day, and he was there, like Marty was interviewing him, and I remember him like making a big impression on me just from like after I had met him, and then hearing him talk about building a Bitcoin business and stuff. And somebody like him, I look to in the space, and I'm like, wow, like, gosh, like the amount of knowledge and just sheer like determination to build a Bitcoin business and be successful at it is just like, to me, I want to go and learn. Like, I want to know what he knows. The same thing when I met Graham from Voltage. He's another person. I'm just like, wow. Like, I want to, and I'm lucky. Like, I have a lot of friends that are like startup founders and stuff like that, so I get to lean on them and ask them questions. But for me, I look at some of these older Bitcoin company people in charge, and I'm like, man, like, I want to know what they know as far as like how to run it efficiently. Where are they cutting expenses? Like, where are they seeing revenue growth? Like, all those things. And it sounds very kind of dorky and geeky, but it's just like, nah, I want to learn those things, because I think I can actually, I can take that kind of, that kind of like thing that they give me, and then apply it to what I'm doing. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn with building a Bitcoin business, and I'm still in the very early days. I'm just like a little, just barely hatched, and I'm hoping I can stay around long enough.
We're so early, right, Car? I mean,
yeah.
it's not only just like business. I mean, I think like the interesting part that you brought up too is like, you look at some of these businesses like, like NBK, or for like his company, CoinKite. Yeah, I don't know why I was gonna say Cold Card, but that's obviously like one of the products. I don't know why the name was.
It's a great product.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know why the name was escaping me. But CoinKite's been around for a while when it comes to like Bitcoin land, but at the same time, it's still a very young company.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you kind of look at these guys to like lean on it, but at the end of the day, I think when you're in a Bitcoin company for like 4 years, and you've gone through maybe one of these like cycles where it's gone up and down, and you've kind of seen the bull run and the bear market, and kind of gone through that puts some hair on your chest. It's a little bit different when you're dealing with like a volatile asset that, it takes a lot of conviction to kind of stick behind. And so, as somebody that's kind of starting off in that, and you're kind of building it in a bear market, I mean, obviously Pleb Lab didn't start yesterday, but it did start kind of like in this interesting time where we've seen the price kind of, almost like nosedive. So talk about that as building, this a Bitcoin only business in such like a volatile kind of space.
So like I was talking about my IT career earlier, and like that was one of the things that Bill, my previous like my boss at my prior job, where he would always talk about like being in the technology space, the ground is always going to shift underneath you every 2 to 3 years. And so I remember seeing that in 2015, and then in 2017, and then in 2020 when I left, and then you see it again in 2023. So like every 2 to 3 years, if you're just involved in the technology space, the ground usually shifts underneath you. At that time, we were doing like servers, and everything was going cloud. And then prior to that, it was just like a software, everything that's getting upgraded. So whatever it is, like if it was, or everybody was moving to SaaS, or privacy was a big thing, and security, and like legislation was passed around that for MSPs. So it's like those type of things. I remember thinking like at the time, I was like, how do you know these are coming? And he would just say, he's like, just expect them, like build for them, build for those moments, because they are going to happen. And I think when we came in 2020 or 2021, I think the Bitcoin space was completely different than where it is here in 2023. So when we started Pleb Lab in 2021 in October, it's completely different. And then in 2023 now, it's a entirely different space. But we're going through another little shift right now, at least in the Bitcoin space, where I kind of see, the price of Bitcoin and all those things, but there's also a technology shift that's happened underneath us. That's not even that's not even the money that we're talking about, right? That's just like as a technology company, that's another thing that's happening. So it's being aware of these things, and it's like building for them, and knowing that, hey, like this will always, there will always be these oncoming forces that you can either prepare for, or you don't. But ideally, you'd want to prepare for them and then be ready for them. And sometimes it's just pure luck and talking to the right people, and building a network of other builders that you can then lean on. And kind of what we do, man. We have our like weekly call that we all talk about these things. Like it's building a little tribe that we can all kind of watch out for each other. And I think Bitcoin in general, just like the people that I have talked to, already kind of do that. So I think that's another thing, is just being aware of these things and talking, and being willing to share this information, because we're all trying to survive, the oncoming storm.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, you described something that is kind of similar to tech and Bitcoin, where there's like ever changing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Bitcoin space is unique because it seems like there's always a push for open source, like full transparency, and kind of just like building each other up. Essentially, it seems like, at least for that way. Whereas tech, it seems like it's almost the opposite. And I don't know if maybe not it's as cutthroat or anything like that, but it's more like, all right, building in the background, not really as open facing. And then when stuff kind of hits the fan or whatever, they're kind of like closed off in private about it. Whereas I feel like in the Bitcoin space, when things go wrong or whatever, it's at least from my experience or seeing like some of the other Bitcoin companies, they're always there to kind of try to help and answer or help or figure out what went wrong, that kind of stuff. Is that something that, you've kind of noticed as well? Maybe you don't have to like rip fully on tech, but just like kind of speak to like, I guess, the openness and open source kind of aspect of Bitcoin. Like, do you think that that's, like actually prevalent when it comes to a lot of these Bitcoin companies? Especially when you're talking to some of these other founders or startup guys and whatnot.
I think in my experience, I think there's like, I remember being in I wouldn't call it a tech company, but I did work for a web hosting company that was pretty big and doing a lot of their back end, and they used all sorts of like Linux distro. I think it was I forget the name. It wasn't Fedora, but it was another variation of that. I forget the name now. It doesn't matter. But I remember working for that company and thinking like they was more tech bros. Like it was more that kind of culture where it was like, I mean, good or bad, but it was just kind of that. And I remember when I started working for like this MSP that I used to work for, it was different because it was an Austin based firm. It was teaching me how to build like a practical revenue focused kind of company. It was like humble beginnings the way he had built it out. It was just the right leadership. And I remember when I worked at that tech company, it didn't have the right leadership. If anything, it had too many middle management positions. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think when I look at Bitcoin companies, I think the ones that I know, I feel like a lot of us are trying to build like a practical Bitcoin business and trying to figure out how to generate profit and do those, things. But it's still early days. I think everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, not only for like just the plebs kind of being in the space and trying to find their own. I think companies are still trying to find their own, and it's not only. I mean, we're seeing that. It's interesting too because, for Bitcoiners and kind of people in general, maybe just unique to Bitcoin, but there's a lot of startups, right? Because it's a new industry just in general. But unfortunately, not every startup's going to make it.
Right.
And so like there's a lot of these companies that, that maybe they have a good product or service or, something built around Bitcoin, but maybe they don't have the right backing or, maybe they just, something along the way kind of finds, it leads to a bump in the road, or maybe, the founder gives up a little too soon or something like that. It is tough to build a business. So, I guess what gets you, like, what are you most looking forward to with Pleb Lab? Like, because obviously, we kind of lined out your path for here. And we kind of described it as like kind of linear, but obviously anybody's path to get to where, you are at, or anybody else, like, that's kind of gone through their that had to go through some sort of trials and tribulations, some sort of bumps in the road. So, as we're kind of describing maybe some of the difficulties that Pleb Lab has going through, like, obviously talking to other Bitcoiners and some of these other guys kind of helps you stay level headed. But, what is one thing that you think has kind of helped you, kind of go through some of these, like maybe difficult times, as you're, now that the Pleb Lab CEO, and kind of help build that out, and, maybe some of these stressful times as like planning sats by and kind of going through that, like what is one thing that you can like point to that, or maybe not one thing, maybe multiple things that you can point to that you think has like really helped you, kind of, and not weather the storm, but just, like maybe through some of those bad days, just kind of help you keep going.
Yeah, I think obviously having the people inside the lab to lean on is a big thing. I think if you're building a company, like, you shouldn't do it alone. Like, especially like I would just say any kind of company. I wouldn't just say Bitcoin exclusively. I would say, like, if you're building a company, like, of any sort, you kind of want your people around you, your kind of tribe, right? And that happens in like a co-working space. And I think for me, when I look at what I'm doing here, it's like having that community is especially important. And I would also say, like, I think for me, in like Pleb Lab's situation and the places we're going and hope to be, I think for me now, kind of having the reins of everything and kind of seeing where it's kind of at, I'm really just trying to do everything the right way. I don't know how else to explain that. It's like doing everything the right way as to the best of my ability that I know how to do. And whether that's like seeking information from the right people to then, facilitate that, or reaching out for help, or just acknowledging things that I might have my limits on, in capabilities, and then seeking out help for that. I think that to me is probably the most helpful advice I can get to anybody that's out there trying to do something. It's just like, sometimes it's just making sure that you're tying up every loose end, you're crossing every T, you're dotting every I, and you're putting your best work every day in and out of the office, and then waking up the next day and doing the exact same thing all over, and then just being consistent and thorough and detail, and trying to maintain that pressure, whether it's external or internal, and being of help to others too at the same time. There's a I hate to bring this up, but there's a great movie that I saw over the weekend. It's called First Man. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't. Is it on Netflix, or where did you see it at?
I think it's just on Apple TV, but like you can watch it. I recommend anybody to watch that movie, because it's about Neil Armstrong, and everybody knows who Neil Armstrong is. Yeah. Like, first man to walk on the moon. To seeing like the way he operated to like this high level. I'm not trying to compare like Bitcoin startups to like rocket ships or anything, or
hey, but they're all going to the moon, right?
yeah. That's great. But I think what I'm trying to say is, like, for me, when I saw that movie, I saw a man who was under immense pressure from not only his superiors, but his people around him, his family, his wife, his kids, the government, outside pressure from like the media, and then the pressure to get on the moon. And at the time, they didn't even know like most of what they were doing, right? Or at least in the movie, they explained that a lot of the stuff that they didn't even know what they were doing. But they were all so focused on like making this a real thing. So when I saw that movie, I remember thinking, I was like, wow, like, Carr, you don't have it nearly as bad. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not, like, it's just like realizing, like, sometimes it's just like, you might think you're doing the most important thing in the world, or you might think you're like, your job is so hard or whatever. It's not. It's like, stay humble. It's like stay humble, realize the situation you have, and like try your best to figure it out with your God-given abilities. And if you can't do that, find somebody to help you do it. That's kind of how I see it. It's just like there's no excuse. The only excuse is just in your mind to not achieve it. And so it's just like stay consistent, stay humble. Like it's the best thing you can do, you know?
Yeah, no, and I think like the big thing that I take away from all that is like at the end of the day, as the older I get and the more you kind of interact with adults or people who are maybe higher up in companies, I think like at the end of the day, nobody really knows what they're doing. I mean, just to kind of put it at like kind of a little light to it, but I think like everybody's just kind of figuring it out as they go, and I think that that's what's kind of inspiring as I've gotten to know you is like you don't let any obstacle really stop you when it comes to all this stuff. You're just like, hey, you roll with the punches, you figure it out as you kind of go, and you don't really make any excuses about it, and you're not afraid to reach out to people for help or anything. And I think that's kind of your superpower too, is that you're able to ask for help, where a lot of people maybe have a lot of pride when it comes to that too. So, and not only that too, like you help elevate everybody around you, which I think is awesome. And, I think that's the thing that I've noticed the most here in Austin is that it's the community aspect of all of it. Right. Because, it's, like obviously you help like spearhead a lot of that with initially getting the Austin, Bitcoin club together, but, you're only one person starting that. And then it's like so many like-minded people get together like that. It's just exploded into something that's obviously, it's much bigger than you. It's much bigger than Pleb Lab. It's huge. Like I've been seeing like this mecca almost here. And it's, it's truly inspiring to see it all kind of pan out. And there's so many different, events and other things like that going on. So, on that note with Pleb Lab and other things and, all these events, obviously we're here in the middle of Sats Buy, but we're in the first quarter of the year, so we still got a good ways to go. What are some of the things that you're looking forward for in the Austin area? Maybe it's not Pleb Lab specific, or it could be. Do you guys have any like other big plans, other big things that you foresee in this in 2023?
Yeah, I think continuously helping more companies, more startups, more projects. We want to do more hackathons. More startup days, stuff like that. So continuously doing that, and then continuously like supporting our community. Nifty's throwing Bitcoin Plus next month. That's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely come to Austin for that. Of course, we have the Miami conference every year, so I'm sure a lot of people will go to that. And then there's some other really interesting developer conferences that are kind of sprucing up. TabConf is another big developer conference that I'm going to attend, and Pleb Lab will be in attendance too as well. So it's those kind of things that I'm looking forward to for the rest of the year. But it's also like this is also like a building year, and like stay light, try not to churn, spend too much money. You want to like survive these years. You got to be like very cognizant of everything. So that's kind of the thing too as well. I got to be mindful of. But I do think there's a lot to look forward to in the Bitcoin space right now. Nostra's kind of become this like behemoth, right? And everybody's building on it. And for me, I think the Nostra stuff is really cool. I can't wait to see what gets built this weekend. There's the Lightning to see how far that has come. Like LNURL is like really kind of taken off, and we're seeing it really happen. To degrees, like with the Nostra stuff. So that to me looks really cool. The ChatGPT stuff looks really cool. I can't wait to see some of the project ideas that come out from this weekend. Quite frankly, there's going to be, I think we have 124 people signed up right now. That's the biggest hackathon that I've ever been a part of since I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And when I got started doing these hackathons inside of Austin, I remember the guys used to tell me, some of the devs used to tell me, they're like, yeah, Car, we'd only get like 20 people or like 25 people. It's like, really? Why? How? Like, how is that? Like, to me, it's always boggled my mind, that how little support these kind of hackathons have. But we've been very lucky. I think Pleb is very lucky. I think Austin's been very lucky that everybody kind of supports it. So it's kind of cool. I can't wait to see what kind of gets built, to be honest with you.
Yeah, man. And
can't wait to see.
It's interesting you brought up the Nostra development too, because like, I don't know, just from me being in Tampa and like just kind of hanging out in Twitter, like the only time I really heard about Nostra was when like Jack Dorsey, I mean, the first time I heard about it was when Jack Dorsey kind of tweeted about it. But, you know, as I talked a little bit with, I forgot. I mean, Super, yeah, I think it was with Super today. When I talked with him, Super Testnet, he was like talking about how he like heard about Nostra in like 2018 or 2 or 3 years ago or something like that. And I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm so like out of the loop that I haven't heard about it until just like fairly recently. Yeah. But yeah, and then we got Nostrica, I think, going on in Costa Rica.
Oh yeah, that's happening right now too. Yeah.
So there's not only like what's going on here, it's like going on
all over.
Like, all over. But I mean, you know, I think that the crazy part is we're getting like all these devs, like you said, like under one roof, and kind of the power of that. Like I just keep going back to that, the power of the community, and kind of just having all these like-minded people kind of there, you know, under one roof, and just building each other up, man. Yeah, it's crazy. Like this Austin scene is something else, man.
Yeah, we were talking about it today, but it's like two things, right? There's this Margaret Mead quote where she talks about how never underestimate a group of people can change the world. She says, she goes, indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I think we're at a time right now in history where everybody realizes like the money is like the biggest problem with the state of the world right now. It's like the money's broken. There's something going on there. Everybody knows at this point the money's broken, and you literally have some of the brightest minds in the world working on this one problem, you know, attacking it from different areas, you know, whether it's like this Web3, this thing, or this Web5, or even those people that are like on crypto, they think that they're trying to solve this problem too. And Bitcoiners, we all believe that we have it figured out. And so like, I think we're just in the right time in history where there's just like some really smart people working on fixing some of these problems. And I think we're going to get there. I think it's just going to require everybody to kind of, you know, help.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think like you said, like the more I spend time down here, the more I and talk to people, the more I think that we're gonna get there. It's just like, you know, it's obviously not a linear path or anything, but I think, you know, the most inspiring part about all of this is like, all right, we've had like a little bit of a run up to like 25K or whatever, but it's definitely not a bull market by any means, right? I mean, we're doing all this in a bear market, and I know the common phrase is like bear market is for building, but you don't really see it unless you kind of come to Austin. So I'll give you the floor here. What for any Bitcoiner that hasn't visit Austin yet? What's the sales pitch like? Why should they come here? Why should they come and attend an event like this?
I would say this. I would say just come for like one of these things. You know, just either it's SatsBuy or Bitcoin Plus next month, or you could pick any random week in Austin, and you'll have things to do. Like it's at a point now where, like, for me, every day is Bitcoin. But it's a big thing, man. And what's cool is like you're seeing new people come in and get orange pilled, and people that were in these other cryptos and now they're getting orange. Like that's the cool thing too. But I would say if you're from out of state or, you know, out of country and you're thinking about visiting Austin, I would say, yeah, just come. I mean, you can always ring the doorbell here at Pleb Lab. Somebody will answer it. You know, you can get yourself a day pass, hang out with us. You can go to the Commons. Commons has great events over there every week, so you could go do that too. Like, I think for me, I think if I was going to attribute one thing to come to Austin, is the people. Like some of the people that you'll meet here, like you get to know them on a personal level, and you get to hang out with them, and it becomes a stronger bond than just Bitcoin. You know, you start helping them because you're invested in them as a person. You want to see them, you know, grow and stuff. So I think for me, that's kind of the reason to come, is just the people are very passionate and unique here.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and I echo that point and that sentiment 100%.
You should move here, Brandon.
I
It would be, dude. It would be epic if you move Green Candle to Austin. It'd be crazy. It'd be like so amazing, dude. You would have.
I know.
I'm just saying, dude. It would be like legendary because you can work out of this office if you want. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. There'd be so much opportunity here for
yeah,
you.
it's definitely it's definitely tempting, especially because I mean the hardest part is like I grew up here, so like I don't know, it almost feels
It's like going back home.
yeah, like a personal kind of like almost like a step back, even though there's so much building here. It's like it would probably help out a lot. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I never want to write anything off, or anything like that. So it definitely could be a possibility here in the future. You never know.
Maybe just come every month, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, you planted the seed though. I mean, and the other thing is too, I do have family here, so I do have like a nice like couch to crash on if I want to come here. So there we go. But Car, dude, you've given me a bunch of your time today, and you're always super generous, and I really do appreciate it. So thanks for coming on. But for those who don't follow you or don't know your pod or Stacker News or anything like that, where can they find all that and connect with you?
Yeah, I would say first thing is if you guys are interested in coming to Pleb Lab and visiting Pleb Lab and being a part of Pleb Lab, we have memberships and there's an application for our accelerator. So you can go do all of that at pleblab.com. First and foremost, after that, I have a weekly pod with my best friend Keon. We do a Stacker News Live. And that's a lot of fun. It's finally starting to grow now, which is kind of interesting. People are watching it. And then I do a weekly pod where, I interview, sometimes it's just like people in Austin. It's more like culture focused inside the pod. And we talk about a lot of different stuff, privacy, lightning. Today we're talking about riding with Ninja Grandma. So it's like, it's all over the place, but it's a good time. And you can learn all that stuff on thrillerbitcoin.com. That's my media company. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at ThrillerX_. Also on Nostra, ThrillerX. And dude, thank you again, Brandon, for having me on. This is pretty epic.
Of course, man. I always love sitting down and chatting with you. So we'll have to have you back on in the future. And everybody check out his stuff. Check out Thriller Bitcoin too. I made an appearance on it a little while ago, but they've got a lot better episodes with guests a lot cooler than
dude,
me.
You were like one of our biggest episodes.
I appreciate that, man. All right. Well, check out Thriller, check out SatsBuy, check out Pleb Lab, do all that stuff. And tune in to all the stuff that they got going on. And let's be on the lookout for all the cool stuff we'll be building this weekend, man. I'm hyped.
Me too.